Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay.
Well, welcome to the What They Wrote podcast, the podcast where we usually discuss authors and the works that inspired them, but not today. Today is another one of our bonus episodes that we have for you. I am author Whitney Welsh Gibbs, and this is my co-host Megan Brebner, and we are just two girlies who love books, travel, and Taylor Swift. Hey Meg, how you doing?
Hey Whit, couldn't have said it better myself.
Right? It's simple, to the point. So what's up? How's life?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been pretty crazy here in LA. As we're recording this, we're maybe like a week and a half after the start of the massive wildfires in the Los Angeles area, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire in Altadena, among other major fires, but those were the two big ones. So it's been like kind of a crazy past couple of weeks, no?
It has been actually crazy. I feel like the amount of stress I had, I couldn't do anything. I'd be like, I need to work out. I can't work out. Like, I have to like worry about this. I need to do this. I can't do this. You know, I'm just worried.
Exactly. Like you couldn't do anything. And you weren't allowed to do anything for a while too. It kind of felt like COVID lockdown again for a minute. Like when the fires were at its peak and the winds were crazy. Like down here in LA, we have the Santa Ana winds that they were almost like, I think they said they were hurricane level. Like I've never experienced wind like this in my life. So it was blowing the smoke everywhere. It smelled like a campfire outside. And they told people like, don't leave your house. Like don't do any exertive exercises outside. And if you do, wear an N95 or KN95. So I don't know like what triggered me more, the don't leave your house or if you do, wear the N95 mask. And so that's when I dipped. My husband and I packed up our cats and escaped up to my parents' house in Northern California just to get away from the smoke, the lockdown, and just the overall stress. We couldn't sleep. Like I was staring at my, the Watch Alert app. And just like staring to see if, the fires were going to creep close to us or if we were going to be in an evacuation zone. Like I literally did not sleep.
It was so weird because it became like a norm, like throughout the day and like every morning checking the Watch Duty app, just seeing like, has the fire spread? Is it closer to me? I know we have that Eaton fire that's like over the hill behind our house. And so we just kept watching those evacuation zones, making sure that they weren't getting closer and closer to us so that we had to leave. We had bags ready. I just like unpacked my bag yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
I have it, it was just sitting there. It was ready to go. My Kindle was packed up, I was just ready to leave.
The important things.
Absolutely.
Your heated blanket. Your Kindle.
Exactly. I was ready to go. I was ready to just bounce out of here too. But yeah, it's been really scary. I'm happy that the fires they're not fully contained at this point, but they are getting closer to being fully contained. And so we feel more comfortable, but it's just been rough. It's been really hard here.
It really has. And it's been so eye-opening and just so like heavy because you either know somebody directly who lost their home in one of the fires or you're like maybe one removal away. Like, somebody who knows somebody that was uprooted. Like, even though it's such a huge town, like somehow we're still all so connected. And I know so many people who know people or have friends and family that lost their homes, which is just absolutely devastating. Like, they're not overdoing it on the news. Like it is actually like completely wiped down in some of these areas. So I'm of course blessed and thankful that, myself, my family, and all my loved ones are safe and still have homes, but I am completely heartbroken and devastated for the people that did not make it out with everything.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really terrible. And people that are going to have to rebuild, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. These communities have to come together, and we're already seeing that, communities coming together.
We are.
For little things, big things, that sort of thing. I know at my work, they had an effort to get together and bring supplies over to the Eaton Fire area. So they were bringing, food and that sort of thing. I know that other people have been doing a lot of stuff. I know I've donated a couple books to some people that are rebuilding their libraries. So there's things that we can do and there's things that are already beginning to happen, but there is some efforts that are ongoing and they'll be ongoing for a while. which I mean is great, a great opportunity. It's not a great reason, but it's a great opportunity to kind of like see where you can help and see what you can do. I know that, you know, we've been thinking about ways that we can help and things that we can do, and we've seen others do so as well. So if, you know, if you've been impacted by these fires and the things that are going on, we know that we have, and we've put together a list of ways that you can help. I'll put it in the description here for the podcast. And if you feel so inclined, there is a lot of need. If, you know, if you want to donate books, that's cool too. If you want to donate some monetary to some monetary funds, that's also awesome. But yeah, as we're looking forward and seeing, you know, our Southern California area just kind of rebuilding and starting new in some places, we really want to bring light to that and not get too heavy, but just that it is a heavy subject, and, you know,
It
a lot of
is.
people are
It's very
impacted.
real.
Yeah. So besides that, what else is new?
Well, I know, and a way to start on a damper, Meg, but so as we're recording this, we are maybe little over 48 hours away from the Onyx Storm midnight, in quote, release party at the Grove in Los Angeles, which we are shaking in our boots excited for. Like, I still don't believe that it's actually happening. I'm so convinced that something's gonna happen, knock on wood, and you know, that's just the COVID trauma in me. But I'm so excited. First of all, I'm excited for this book to come out. Like, the teasing is just out of control. Like, we are all like overflowing with theories and anxieties and stresses and just like all of these things, all of these thoughts, and it feels like the entire world, because I'm sure that's what our algorithm is right now, is just Onyx Storm stuff, is anticipating this. And it's actually been getting a little crazy because we have that Target special collector's edition that is supposed to release only on the 21st, not a minute before, but it's going to be at midnight Pacific on going into the 21st, online and in stores at Target. But it seems like some Targets, either accidentally or intentionally, who knows, put the Onyx Storm copies out on the shelves early. People found them, tried to obviously buy them early, and were stopped like at the checkout. Like, it doesn't let you, like, it says like, oh, can't sell until the 21st. So they were stopped. And then it sounds like people were crazy and decided to swap covers of like either Iron Flame or something else just so they could check it out and leave with it early. Because of this, Onyx Storm is like leaked. It is out in the world for some people who happen to get away with this. First of all, Target is totally screwed. Like, they are going to probably get fined very steeply for that, because there are super strict rules about releasing books before their published date, especially ones as highly anticipated as this. And of course, now the anxiety of being on the internet before we get the book in our hands, because now somebody out there is reading it and is posting spoilers. I heard. Thank God I haven't seen any yet. But like, what the heck happened here?
See, I think we need to address a few things with this, because first of all, it was Target's responsibility. I also heard Walmart did this too. So these two big corporations, it was their responsibility to keep these safe and like under wraps. Now, things happen. Some employee doesn't know that this book is supposed to come out on this date. The box gets put in the wrong spot. They put it out. That usually happens like one or two stores. This happened in like many stores. This happened like all around the United States. So there's a big problem there, first and foremost, with the companies putting out these books early. And we don't know, you know, maybe Red Tower did do this. I don't believe they did, but there is that chance that maybe they wanted a leak, you know, to hype it up.
There's the conspiracy and everything, right?
It could have happened, but majority of the time,
that's not
what happens. And I don't think that this would happen. Rebecca Yaros is saying she's crying because people are getting these books, and she's so upset. So you guys have made Mother mad. It's not,
how dare you?
Okay. Yeah,
how dare you?
Exactly. But also, and I'm going to say this with my whole entire chest, if you are picking up a book that is not supposed to be released until a certain date, trying to buy it, okay, fair, and it doesn't go through, it doesn't register and allow you to buy it, do not steal that book.
Yes.
Do not take it, and if you swap that dust cover out for something else and take that book, you are stealing. That is not fair. That is not right. It's not fair to the author. It's not fair to that other person that might pick up that book that you have now swapped it out with, thinking that it is Onyx Storm on the 21st, gets home and it's not. Now you've ruined their experience. And they have to go back to the store, and it looks how are they going to prove that to the store that they did not steal this other book? You have caused that. And now you're putting spoilers out? Like,
I can't think of a more disgusting person. Like,
it's terrible.
Oh my God, like I can't, but like even if I had the nerve to do something like that and get that book, I would not in a million years, first of all, post that I did it and then post spoilers. Like, are you kidding me? And then I think you were saying you were in Target the other day and we're looking through the book section and you didn't see a single copy of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, nothing, which makes me feel like they did that because now they're not sure which books are which. If people were actually swapping the dust covers, now they had to pull all of the Fourth Wing Iron Flame books off the shelves and make sure that the right book is in the right sleeve. Like, it just caused a whole giant mess, and shame on those of you who are out there, first of all, stealing that and posting spoilers about it. You're ruining it for everybody.
Yeah, what is the point of ruining somebody's experience that they've been waiting for? I know we have been waiting over a year for it. We didn't even read, you know, well, we read Iron Flame pretty close to its release time, but about a month out. But, you know, everybody's been waiting at least a year or more for this book, and you're going to go spoil it the weekend before. No, thank you. That is rude. That is unethical. It's terrible. Frankly, this is that dark side of like the book talk, bookstagram kind of like community, and I don't like it. And it's just not fair to anybody. And so please don't do that. Please think before you do something like that, and don't.
Yeah, and those types of things, like we hear Rebecca Yarros talk a lot about her mental health and how much like having written a story that exploded like this has caused her anxiety. Like, just obviously the internet has its opinions and it's made her so anxious to even start writing. Like, this would probably make me never want to write again. Like, that's pretty dramatic. But to know that you went through all of this just to have somebody go and find the copy ahead of time and spoil it online, like that would make me, like, that would spiral my mental health also. So like, we're just really doing nobody any favors doing this.
Yeah, so don't do it. Think about it, things like that before you do them. Understand that you are hurting not only, you know, somebody else's experience reading, which is so important to not spoil somebody else's experience. That's why we always have spoiler warnings. That's why we always take care not to do that for other people, because that is an experience to be able to read something for the first time and to be able to fall into that story. And when it's ruined for you, that's just not good. But also you're ruining, you know, the sales charts for that book for that week, you know, bestsellers list. Now, Onyx Storm is going to be a bestseller no matter what. But, you know, if you did this to another author that maybe is not as big as Rebecca Yarros is right now, and it doesn't matter, even though she's, you know, big, it doesn't matter. You've just now stolen her book. But if you did that to a smaller author, you are really hurting their chances of getting on the bestseller list and their rankings. So don't do it. Let's just not, like, that's a terrible thing to do. It makes me sick. And keep those spoilers to yourself, because we all want to enjoy it. So by the time you guys hear this, Onyx Storm will be out, but that is
it won't matter.
Yeah, but that is
but
our
for
soapbox.
Future, that is. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Exactly. Well, let's get out of all these kind of like downer things.
Yeah, right.
Things, and let's talk, because, you know, you and I were talking recently about travel. We travel a lot, travel together a lot, and it's one of our favorite things to do. So we were kind of reflecting on like our favorite times we've traveled, the things that we've done. And I wanted to talk to you and ask you about your favorite trip you've ever taken. What was the best trip you've ever taken?
Oof. Okay. Well, that's a loaded question.
Sure.
And if you would have asked me this question a year ago, my answer would have been totally different.
Sure.
But the traveling we did last year in 2024 actually changed my life. Not to be like so dramatic, but I'm going to start by saying this. Before our 2024 travel, I probably could not have chosen a destination. Like, I've loved my trips. Like, I've been to Greece twice and experienced like 8 different islands in Greece and loved every single one of them. I used to think like that's the place I was meant to be, is in Greece. But then I went to St. Lucia, which is an island in the Caribbean, and Antigua, an island in the Caribbean. And I thought, you know what? My soul belongs here on this beach. In both of those places, I genuinely probably could not pick between the two. But the trip we went on last year in 2024, we did a dual trip to London and Ireland. And I know London was on both of our bucket lists. And Ireland, I know, was both on both of our bucket lists as well, but it was definitely like the top one destination I'd wanted to see up until that point. Ireland stole the show for me. I have not stopped thinking about Ireland. I do have a little bit of Irish heritage, of course, and so I obviously felt like a little bit in my roots, but I don't even think that had to do with why I loved that country. Like, I couldn't think of a bad thing about it. And let me also tell you, like, I hate the cold. I am the coldest person alive. Like, I'm always cold. I'm cold in 70-degree weather, cold in 75-degree weather, light breeze. I'm putting on like a windbreaker. Like, I hate the cold. And everyone told me, Megan, you're gonna hate Ireland. It's cold, it's rainy, it's wet. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll suck it up. I want to see it. Honestly, first of all, wasn't that cold the whole time. Yes, it was chilly, but I feel like we were dressed pretty prepared. And it didn't bother me because I was in the most magical place I've ever been in my life. Like, I've never seen greens that shade before. I've never felt more at ease in a place. Like, even when I travel, there's always like some sort of like nerves, like, you know, I don't know this city, I don't know this town, is it safe? Like, I never once felt unease, unsafe. Even when we were in like the heart of the city, like hailing taxis on our own, the people were so friendly, so nice, so funny. Everybody we met that was a local was just naturally funny. They are hilarious. They are so nice. People went out of our way to be nice to us. Like, we were thinking, you know, like we were just trying to ask for directions maybe and then let them be on their way. They're busy. They've got, you know, kids, work, whatever. But no, they would like follow us to make sure that we knew where we were going, like not in a creepy way at all. Like, just this woman and her daughter were like, oh, hey, like we just wanted to make sure like you found the right way. So we'll walk this way with you a little bit. Like, and we're just like, are you sure? Like, okay, thank you. Like, it was so crazy. I could talk about it forever, but yes, Ireland stole the show for me. Number one, near and dear to my heart. What about you?
Well, I am like you. I travel a lot. I love to travel. I love pretty much everywhere I go. I always say I come back with like a new favorite place every time I go on a trip. And you're right. About a year ago, I would have been like, I don't know. Like, I felt at home in Australia. I loved Barbados. I loved this. I loved that. I loved it when we were in Spain together.
Yes.
You know, that sort of thing. But you are so right. Our trip in 2024 was so awesome. It was so like, just the experience was perfect. I didn't have a bad moment on there. And let me say, I got so sick with allergies while we were in Ireland. This girl forgot her allergy medication and like a dummy was allergic to like all the green grass that she loves so much. But it was
not just allergies, lest we remember, because now you have to tell people why you were also sick.
Why was it?
You got injured.
Oh my goodness, yes I did. So I also love potatoes and french fries. And as we were on our trip in Ireland, we stopped off for lunch. And of course I had some french fries, as you do when you're in Ireland, you have potatoes. And I burnt my esophagus. I burnt the inside of my throat with like to the point where I had like a welt in my throat from a French fry. It was actually really terrible.
Not her tongue, not like even the back of her throat, inside her esophagus during the swallowing process of the really hot French fry.
And it wasn't even that hot.
Well, right, like it must have been on the inside. Then, like once you chewed it up, like this piping hot potato went down your esophagus, and then you're trying to swallow it so it'll like go away, but in turn, it like literally ruined your esophagus for several days. You were like hoarse.
I was hoarse. It hurt to swallow, but I still had the best time ever. So you know, that's okay. And it was an awesome trip at an awesome time because I was writing my new series that's coming out very, very soon, in less than 2 months. Actually, we're a month and a half away at time of this episode. But so it is loosely based on Irish folklore and history. That being in that country was amazing. It was a great experience as I'm like delving like into that. But yeah, no, it was like one of the best trips ever, and I loved it, and I want to go back. And I do too. I don't think anything has compared ever.
And like the second I don't need to live in the United States for, you know, one reason or another, I'm going to find a way to be an Irish citizen. Like whatever I have to do, I will, you know, I'll vow myself to like the Irish gods. Like, I don't care what it'll take. I will become an Irish citizen and live there for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with you, so you better have an extra room.
Yeah, no, we'll have an extra bedroom for you, 100%.
Perfect. Yeah, well, travel is like so kind of ingrained in like what we do. That is what we love, and we love it probably as much as books, and we actually do experience a lot of our books on our trips. We've talked on this podcast a lot about how we came back into reading on our trip to Europe together in 2023, how that was really like a cool experience, and how we can like, when we think back on like the places that we were at, we can think of like a very specific part of a book that we were at.
Yes.
I know that we were in Italy in 2023. It was Halloween, because I remember this so specifically, and we were standing there waiting for our bus to take us to Sorrento, and we just did like a tour at some factory or whatever it was, and I was reading A Court of Mist and Fury, and I had gotten to like the pivotal moment of A Court in Mist and Fury. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but everybody knows what the pivotal moments are. You know, Rhysand being Rhysand. And I was standing there reading it, and every time I think about that book and that, you know, that moment in that book, I think of where I was at. And it's just like that experience comes back, and I like just start to smile. I'm like, oh, I remember I was in Italy. I was standing right here while I was reading this book. And so it's such a cool thing to kind of like experience travel and books and how those two can kind of go together. And it's really cool. And there really is kind of like a, I don't know, what would you say, like a niche kind of travel group or travel community that really does base their travel on books?
Yeah, I mean, books have been like retaking off. Like, I don't know if like they've just always been this popular and my algorithm's just now picking up on it, but books are back, baby. And especially our generation, I feel like has taken a huge commitment to traveling in their lives. They've put such a priority in experiences and experiencing the world. And we've blended those two together in society. And so now we have this concept of bookish travel, which we've talked about a lot. And so today, this episode is going to kind of really dive into what that is and how you can go on your own bookish adventure. So when we say bookish travel, essentially we're talking about traveling, and your trip itinerary includes places for like different literary locations. So it's either locations based on real places found in books or real places in the world that inspired fictional cities in books, or perhaps cities that we feel or the world feels could be inspired by the fictional place. So like a place we read in fiction is like, this reminds me a lot of this place. So you can kind of immerse yourself into a world that feels similar to that fictional place. So there's lots of different variations and nuances of this, but essentially you're traveling with an itinerary that is based on books. We love that. So now there's a couple different things that I've definitely seen in the world, a couple different things that we've talked about. You have bookish travel where like you and your girlies are going to these locations just to experience them and travel the world. Then there's also reading retreats that are out there right now, like reading and writing retreats, honestly, where you go to a place with a group and maybe you only just like you pick a book that you're all going to read and discuss, kind of like a little book club there. Or maybe it's just, hey, we're going to get away and we're all going to rent this villa so we can all spend time to read a book, where you're not going to a place necessarily because it is based on a book, but you're just going somewhere to get away so that you can read. We love both of them, but they are two totally different things. Yes. So we want to make sure, I mean, and if you wanted, you could really blend them into one if you wanted. That's going to be a very heavy trip where you go on a bookish adventure, but also leave time to read. But I feel like you would be like itching to get out and see the world instead of hold up wanting to read. Yeah. So we've definitely talked about both of those and kind of who is doing this right now. Like, so we obviously, if you read books or if you like traveling / both, you're going to like bookish travel. There is no specific demographic. There's no age limit or anything. Like if you like reading and you want to travel, bookish travel is for you. Yep. So I know you have done a lot of work kind of putting together your own bookish adventure itineraries and some examples of what people can do on these bookish adventures.
Yeah, I have, because I was really kind of intrigued when I started reading more about like what bookish travel is, what do people usually do on bookish travel, the difference between those two things, like the reading retreat and the bookish travel, because I don't think that that's like common knowledge. People think like, oh, I'm going to do bookish travel, but I'm going to this reading retreat. It's a little bit different.
A little
But
different.
I was really intrigued. And so I started looking into what are like the popular locations to go on bookish travel adventures. Where are we going? Where are most people like really looking to go? Because first of all, I need your suggestions, because I'm always looking for someplace new to go. But also, what are the books that people are really inspired by to start to travel? What are they looking for? Are they looking for like those really kind of slice of life books where they're walking down the same streets of these people? Or are they looking for inspiration from these authors that, they really love? What is it? So I kind of started to compile a list of these different places where people have started to go and travel in bookish travel. First and foremost, obviously, the one that stands out the most is London. We went to London. Of course, we wanted to do all of the Harry Potter things because we love Harry Potter, of
Love
course.
it. Diehards.
And diehards. We grew up with it. We don't need your controversy. We love it. So London is famous for that, obviously. You have the Harry Potter studio tour if you're into the movies. You have all the different places that inspired the book, Platform 9 3/4. You can go there. We've been there, that sort of thing. But also, you have other books. How many times have you read a book that has been like set in London or England? It's very, very, very common, for good reason. It is a really cool place to be. There's a lot going on there. It's kind of a magical setting. So, people are traveling to see where Sherlock Holmes lived, which we did as well when we were in
Yes,
London.
we did.
They go there for the classics like H.G. Wells and The Time Machine, and which actually was set in Richmond, where we stayed when we were in London. So, you can go and do those sort of things. 1984, if you really like that dystopian thing, you can kind of go there and see, what inspired George Orwell for 1984. That's a really popular place to be, and for good reason. And there's a lot to do in London. So people are like flocking to London for their bookish travel, which, I mean, I get it. It's cool. I want to go back and explore more, all these different places. Paris is also big, because I don't know if you know, Meg, but in the 1920s, in that early time of like literary greats, we have F. Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway. They were all like congregating in Paris. They were
I didn't know
doing
that.
their writing and then hanging out in Paris. So, if you ever have seen Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson in it, and he goes there, he's an author, and he's inspired by these 1920s writers, and he kind of basically falls into like the world of like 1920s literary greats in Paris. And you can really kind of fall into that as well when you go to Paris, and people are really going there to see those sites that Hemingway kind of wrote his classics at. F. Scott Fitzgerald started partying with all the greats in Paris, that sort of thing, and really kind of get that feel of like old world literary like genius. So people are like flocking to Paris. Not only is it beautiful to go to Paris and like see the Eiffel Tower and stuff, but like also there's tons of literary like connection there. Dublin, one place that we loved, which for many reasons, in fact, I was dreaming about Dublin last night. So
no way.
Yeah, I was dreaming about Dublin. I was back in the Temple Bar area in Dublin. But Dublin is a big place for literature. And in fact, we noticed this when we were there. When we took that hop on, hop off bus, which I suggest everybody do when they go to different places that they want to see, and they want to kind of see like the city as it is and kind of be able to take it in. When we were taking that hop on, hop off bus, they were talking about, oh, James Joyce wrote about this in the Dubliner, and Oscar Wilde lived here. And for somebody who really likes The Picture of Dorian Gray, that was so cool for me. Like, I absolutely loved hearing about that. But it is a big place for literature. Now, you have your books like Normal People, Sally Rooney, that are written about Dublin and Trinity College. So you could go see Trinity College, which we do suggest. It's actually so cool to go to the campus. But there's also things that are like set around Dublin, not exactly in the city, but close by. Binding 13 is set there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a very popular book. It's not set in Dublin itself, but you can kind of go to Dublin. learn about like the literature of Dublin, and then like expand out into Ireland, which we do suggest because it's a wonderful place.
And not even that, like just being a general book lover in Dublin was really cool because, as you mentioned, the Trinity College has the Long Hall, and that is just beautiful. If you look up pictures, it's just this stunning library, and it has like this big globe in there now. Like it's just so like all these old books, and they even have kept them. Like what was that book they had in the case? What was the one that they showed us?
It's a biblical,
I can't think of the name.
Something, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they have like preserved these very old texts, and it's a little museum where you can go and learn about these texts that were preserved and walk through this famous library on Trinity College, and it's just absolutely stunning. They tell you all about how they've preserved the books. Some of them they've actually, when we were there, they actually took out of the shelves to further preserve them, and they only kept some of the shelves filled with books. So even just that was just a general experience for any book lover, and really literally anybody who goes to Dublin should experience, because it was very, very beautiful.
It was very cool. And the cool thing about that Trinity College library and that long room is that that library has a copy of every single book that has ever been published in Ireland. So any of the popular books that you think, Harry Potter is in there, you know, all these modern books are in there. Binding 13 is in there. So
that's crazy.
You guys are into that one. You know, all these popular books, if they've come out and been, you know, published in Ireland at some point, it's going to be in that library. So if you're thinking like, oh, it's a whole bunch of old books, blah, 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 that's not true. Like it's everything.
Everything.
And it's so cool. It was such a great experience. I love doing that. And in fact, I have like a Trinity College like little book bag and stuff because I was like,
yes,
I need
you
to
did.
commemorate
That's so cute.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful. So Dublin is a huge spot. You know, personally, I would think to go there if I was thinking about literary travel and like bookish travel, I would go there. But it is very popular. It's becoming more and more popular. Other places, obviously stateside, we have New York City, Long Island. Some of my favorite books have been written about New York City. If you know me, you know I've got like multiple copies of The Great Gatsby. My 30th birthday party was a Gatsby birthday party.
And it was so well done. It was so cute.
It was so fun. And so, you know, obviously we know F. Scott Fitzgerald, not only did he hang out in Paris, but he lived in Long Island. He wrote about New York City. The Beautiful and the Damned is one of his other books. If you're a Gossip Girl fan, that is what Gossip Girl is inspired by, The Beautiful and the Damned. That was written about New York City. Gossip Girl, if you read those books, that's written about New York City too. So, you know, we know lots of books have been written about New York City. A Little Life is really popular right now. That book is about New York City. Truman Capote lived in New York City. He wrote extensively about New York. Catcher in the Rye, we've all read that. We read it in school. We know that Holden Caulfield was in New York, running around by himself post World War II. So, you know, New York is a great setting just to travel to. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to see, a lot to do. But if you are really into books, that's also a big place to go. And especially if you don't want to travel like abroad. Some people don't want to travel abroad. Some people are located stateside. They want to travel, you know, somewhere stateside. Yep. New York's a great place to go. It's a lot of inspiration. New books are popping up every day. You know, it's a good place to go.
It's a great starter trip too. If you're somebody who is not very well traveled and it kind of scares you maybe to fly over a big body of water or to travel internationally, or you don't have your passport yet, but you want to experience something like that, like this would be a great starting point to be able to just, I mean, maybe you're on the East Coast already, but like for us Californians, we got to haul it over the country. So this could still be a great little gateway to bookish travel. It would be.
And it'd be even like a good like weekend away, long weekend. You could plan where you were just doing some, you know, step into these authors' shoes. And it's, you know, it's a cool experience to do.
Very cool.
New York is actually really different than like LA or something. So you have that arts kind of scene and stuff like that. So if you're into that, it's really fun too. Edinburgh, for obvious reasons. Jo Rowling lives there. She's very much inspired by Edinburgh as she was writing. She wrote the last Harry Potter books there. You could do that adventure as well. I know we talked about Harry Potter in London, but also Scotland's a great place to go. You have the Scottish Highlands. That was, you know, that they've inspired plenty of books, plenty of classics. And, you know, that's just a wonderful place to start if you want a true, authentic kind of literary experience where you're also kind of like in a calm environment where you could pick up a book and start reading as you're exploring too. Athens, you can go to Greece. Megan knows all about Greece, and we know some of the most classic books we've ever read are there. Maybe you haven't read, the Iliad or the Odyssey, but you're intrigued by Greek mythology and that sort of thing. You can go to Greece and really experience that firsthand. We went to Corfu together. Megan's been to like 8 different islands. I've been to 1. And it's cool because that's like really ingrained in who they are, is that mythology and the inspiration for those stories that they do tell, and that people are really drawn to. I love Greek mythology. I love all the different things that you can pull from it. Percy Jackson is inspired by mythology, so you have the classics, but you also have the popular books as well. And so it's a great place to travel if you want to kind of think about like those stories, maybe not a specific story, but the inspiration for other stories that you've read.
Yeah, and it doesn't even stop in Athens. Like, I actually had clients ask for some Greek islands, like the home of part of a lot of the Odyssey and the Iliad as well, and we were able to send them to those islands so they could experience, the birthplace of some of these mythological characters, and they had an amazing time. So don't think that it's just in Athens that you're going to find this too. Like, we can expand beyond that to almost every Greek island and incorporate that into part of your bookish experience.
Oh, absolutely. Tokyo has been, kind of up and coming in the bookish scene. Megan and I were talking about this. She said, I wonder what's in Tokyo. Are we talking about like Memoirs of a Geisha, which I read and I really enjoyed, and I kind of like the Japanese culture a lot as well. So that's just cool to experience. If you want something completely different from the American experience, going to Japan would be completely different. But also on the bookish level, Japan is like, and Tokyo specifically, are really booming for like up and coming like literary authors, and they've got lots of hidden bookstores and museums and memorials, and Tokyo even has this like book town neighborhood where it's all different like kind of like bookstores and authors and cafes and that sort of stuff. So it's really cool. It's like an up and coming kind of newer scene for book people. But if you want to experience the Japanese culture and you also want to do some like book shopping and, sightseeing, that's a great place to go as well. And then, we have the classics, New Zealand. I don't think I have to go too much into that. Everybody knows why New Zealand is big. Tolkien took over New Zealand with the inspiration. It was really when those movies started coming out for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Right. But also he was inspired by, New Zealand and the scenery that was there. So we know New Zealand's huge. It's been huge for years for bookish travel, and it's only growing. So, you could do the North Island and the South Island and have someplace to go and, something to see.
Yeah, they have like the Hobbiton and stuff there. Like, they've really leaned into it themselves. Like, it's not hard to find there. So that's definitely a popular one right now.
Yes, it is. It's really cool. And there are like whole itineraries. You want a couple weeks, which I would suggest if you're flying that far away. New Zealand is a long ways away from America. And we're in California, we're closest to it. I think Hawaii would be closer, but beyond like mainland America, California, we're closest. It still takes us 16 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is.
It's crazy.
And so it's a long way away. So take a couple weeks and do both islands and see what you can see there. It's awesome. It's cool. You get an adventure with it. Definitely. Finally, one that comes up a lot because people love how beautiful it is, but also because it's become increasingly popular with TV shows based on books, is Croatia. Yes. Now, Megan, we've been talking about going to Croatia for a while now. We want to do it. We're Game of Thrones fans. So, absolutely, watching that and seeing kind of that scenery is so cool. We want to kind of go to Brebner and see, where those things were filmed. But it's also become like a really popular destination kind of as a whole in travel. So Croatia is a cool experience, especially if you like Game of Thrones and you want to experience that. You want to feel like you're being, I don't know, I saw that last season. She's being attacked by dragons, or the
Right.
dragons are attacking, so I don't know about that. But, all in all, you can go and see those beautiful sights and actually have like a cool experience in like the more eastern kind of Mediterranean area of Europe.
Yeah, I had clients go to Croatia and they said it was their favorite place ever. They actually did a dual trip to the Greek islands and Croatia, fully expected to love Greece the best, but they just had heard about Croatia. They loved Game of Thrones, wanted to see it, and they said it stole the show. So, and I actually had a trip planned to Croatia in 2020 before COVID canceled those options. So it is still like knocking on my heart's door like every single day. So I absolutely need to go to Croatia. And it's worth mentioning, like, because I'm sure somebody's out there is going to be like, well, that's a TV show or a movie. That's not really the book. Fine, but let's be honest here. Like, of course, there is a gray line there. There is a blend. Obviously, sure, maybe when George R. Martin was writing it, he wasn't imagining Croatia, like the streets of Dubrovnik, but the people that read the books and loved the books probably watched and loved the show, and of course want to see the characters that they read about in their head where they came to life on screen. So of course there's going to be a little bit of a blend. Same thing with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Like, of course, like originally it was the books. Maybe these aren't the exact places, but there is that crossover. So I say F it. Like, if you want to go see the filming location of the adaptation of your favorite book, that's Bookish Travel.
Yeah, and it's places that we are now inspired, or are inspired by those books. So we really do think of for those books, even if that wasn't like the original place, even if the place is fantasy, which a lot of the time it is, So a lot of the time we do have to kind of make this up in our heads. If we can have a place that really is inspired by that, something that we see when we close our eyes, you want to go see that too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And really cool.
And it helps. Like, I know there are a lot of readers out there like myself. I can't visualize things very well in my head. Like, I'm just one of those people. I know there's like an actual like medical term for this, but I can't like create pictures in my head. So if it's hard for me to visualize something, I usually can't finish reading it, or I can't comprehend what's going on. So I actually like being able to watch adaptations so I can get a scenery in my head and then go back and read those books with those faces and those sceneries in my head. And it can actually be a very helpful tool for those of us who can't imagine things in our little brains.
Oh, it really is. It's helpful. It helps. I mean, authors do it too. They pull inspiration from places too. So they might not be thinking exactly about that place, but, I pull from like, what's the architecture of this kind of place? What's the feel of this sort of place? And that really helps as well too, to kind of build into that bookish travel, the things that we want to see or that have inspired us too.
Which actually might be a good segue if we jump around a little bit here.
Sure.
It may be a good time to talk about where, like, we've asked our followers where they would want to visit, like, fictional places in their books, and where you can go to kind of imagine that. Like, where can you go if you can't go to the literal places in your books?
Yeah, let's talk about it, because I think that's really cool. We put out a poll kind of a couple weeks ago, and we asked our listeners where they would want to visit in the books that they read. Like, what places really stand out to you? Now, we have the very typical one. Valeris was the most talked about, the biggest answer that we had. We understand. We get it. We want to be in the city of starlight. Like, I dream about that place
every day,
all the time. Yeah, absolutely. But you can actually visit places that inspired Valeris. And I don't think people understand this. Now, you look at the map and you're like, yeah, okay, that's the UK. Like, I get it. It's the UK. But actually, Valeris, the real life equivalent would be Zermatt, Switzerland. Now, the Matterhorn sits over Zermatt, Switzerland. So you have the mountain there, the little village with the river that runs through it. This is very much the city of starlight. There's a lot of snow. Totally. It's, in the summertime, it's real pretty, and the river's flowing. It's really nice.
Is that one of the locations that, like, in winter, like, the sun doesn't set? Is it north enough to experience that?
It's not, but it does get nice and dark, and there's a lot of stars because, it's not a lot of light pollution, and, it is really just like a little village that sits there. And so it's like nice and calm. You can read, you could paint like Feyre if you wanted to. You could walk around the city and go to like the little cafes and that sort of thing. And it really is the equivalent. People are flocking there to Zermatt, Switzerland, because
Love it.
it really is kind of the closest thing we have to Volaris, and they are loving it. Switzerland is wonderful anyways, but to find that place where you can really be inspired, and like we said, these places don't necessarily have to be the same places or exactly, you know,
Sure.
what somebody's writing about, but you can have that inspiration, you can have that feeling, you can go take your
That
pictures
feeling.
and say like, I'm here with Rhysand, blah, blah, blah. You know?
Imagine.
That's our dream. But yeah, Volaris was a big one. Unfortunately, one that came up that I cannot find an equivalent to, but I will keep looking. And if you come to me and say like, Whitney, where would you travel if you were thinking of this place? I will find it for you because I want to go too. Bazgaia.
So I actually like just was like brainstorming.
Sure.
I haven't looked for specifics yet, but I
Yeah.
feel like Germany could be a good place to dive into Bazgaia because of all the
Yeah.
German castles. I feel like you could find a castle that kind of emulates Bazgaia, and like obviously you're not going to find dragons, but I feel like that would be a very good like scenery. And then while you're in Germany, like dive into some more bookish travel for like fairy tales and stuff like that. A lot of that's in Germany.
Love that.
So just off the top of my head, I feel like that could be a place we could look into.
A lot of like medieval stone and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. If you're thinking about like the War College where it sits kind of like in like this mountainous area with this big valley, and you're gonna get a lot of that in Germany. And you're gonna have like these big stone castles or big stone fortresses there. I think that's a great idea. Actually, I'm so glad you thought of that because I think that's like the perfect
I literally
place.
thought about it while we were recording, so I didn't get a chance to tell you before.
No, it's perfect. No, I love that. So yeah, Germany would be a great one, and we could explore that and find out where exactly we could
Find some
send
good ones.
Yeah. Now Narnia came up. And if you've read any of the Chronicles of Narnia, you know that this is such a cool place. And obviously nothing like anything in this world. However, I didn't want to disappoint you all. So I went and I did some deep diving into C.S. Lewis, who I love these Narnia books. So this was like something cool for me to do. And I started deep diving into C.S. Lewis, into like the movies, because, you know, I like the Prince Caspian movie was really good. And where did they film that? And, you know, where did C.S. Lewis live? So what was he pulling from? There's actually so many cool things. So C.S. Lewis lived in a lot of his life in Northern Ireland. So a lot of the things that were in Narnia and in those books was inspired by the places he went in Northern Ireland. There's a lot of old castles, like, I'm not even going to say this right, Carrickfergus, the castle in Northern Ireland. That's really, it was a big inspiration for him. He actually wrote about that. The Mourne Mountains in Northern Ireland, he spent a lot of time in. He said it was like one of the most magical places he's ever been. So we know that inspired him in his writing. Also, for the movies, the Prince Caspian movie specifically, they filmed a lot in New Zealand. So you're already there for Lord of the Rings. You can go there and see, you know, C.S. Lewis, the North Island specifically. So if you're starting in the North, you can do like a C.S. Lewis, you know, Voyage of the Dawn Treader and Lord of the Rings kind of mix. And then, you know, finish off in the South Island and just finish up the rest of Lord of the Rings. Czech Republic, which I've never thought of like really going there, but they have locations that were actually in the movies as well. That forest in Narnia was filmed in the Czech Republic, which
wow,
I would have never thought of that. So if you're looking for like an off the beaten path sort of like adventure, this would be something that you could do. And you can actually visit Narnia, which, you know, is really cool.
It's actually
somebody
amazing.
Somebody put that in there just to like throw me off, but you know, of course.
But do you get to walk through a wardrobe?
You know, we can make it happen. We can make it happen.
You know, we could bring a wardrobe with us and give you the real feeling.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We got a couple doors. We'll move them out.
Imagine. That'd be cute though, Loki.
Yes, Loki's so cute. No, we can make anything happen. You know, maybe we'll find you a themed dinner or something that,
cute.
You know, party or something. That would be cool. Ireland, of course, comes up on so many people's lists. We've already talked about it. We understand why, but just the scenery, the green, the, you know, the waterfalls that you just stumble upon and say, oh, well, that shouldn't be here, but it is, you know, inspirational for all those kind of amazing,
truly magical.
Yeah,
exactly. Magical is the word. And I actually read an ARC copy recently of a romance called An Irish Summer or My Irish Summer, something like that. It was so cute, and I picked it specifically because it took place in Ireland and I just wanted to immerse myself back. And they did a really great job of like walking you through the island to almost every single place we went to as well, and talking about the magic in it. So if we want to even lean into some more bookish there, like that's an example of a book that takes place literally in Ireland. It takes place in Galway, and the main female character meets the main male character, and he takes her around and shows her the beauty of the island. So there's just so many ways in which Ireland pops up in books that you just have to go.
I think that there is always opportunity to kind of find, I mean, there's authors from everywhere. So we're not just talking about like the inspiration of these books, but where did these authors go? What cafes did they sit in? Where did they enjoy their time? What parks did they go to? That's why that C.S. Lewis and Narnia question was really cool, because I was really delving into who C.S. Lewis was. Where did he write his books and that sort of thing? And that's just as fun as looking at these books places specifically. You're looking at like where the author drew his inspiration. What did they really enjoy about these places and why? And how can I enjoy them too? So yeah, those were some of the most popular places on the list that I could give you an equivalent for.
Definitely.
And then, of course, we asked, because we need to know, what sort of bucket list bookish adventures do you want to go on? Now, one of mine, which I didn't put on this list because we were asking you guys, but one of mine is to go to Pittsburgh and go through the tunnel, standing in the back of a truck like Charlie did in Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is one of my favorite books, and then see, as you come out of the tunnel, see the bridges and see the city beyond. That is one of my bookish adventures. One day that will happen. I will get to experience it the way that Charlie did, turn up the music, go through the tunnel, see the lights. That is one of mine. But one of our followers actually sent in one that I had to explore a little bit more because I didn't know about it. And I thought it was really interesting. It was kind of like one of those things you wouldn't think of would be bookish travel, but it really is. And it's something cool that you could do that could be even in your own backyard. So somebody wrote to us and said that they would like to do a road trip with their best friends and maybe their siblings, inspired by Walk Two Moons. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this book, but it's by Sharon Creech, and it's about a girl. Her name is, I'm going to call her Sal and Sal only because her name was a little bit like weird, and it's close to like, it's not, so don't come at me, people, but it's close to like salamander, but it's like okay. You know, like it's like a name like that, and I didn't want to be like the person
butchering it.
Yeah, so they call her Sal in the book. Okay. Her and her grandparents take this road trip from Ohio to Idaho to visit her mother's grave, and they do all these stops along the way. So I was exploring this, and I was like, what is this like road trip about? Because I haven't read the book, and now I want to read the book. But I saw that they did kind of like these like really cool kind of like stops throughout the country as they were exploring. And it was like a way for them to get closer as they were doing kind of like this really sad thing, going to see her mother's grave. And they were able to kind of like come together in that time. And I thought that was really neat because it's kind of one of those out of the box things. You don't think like, you know, you're reading this book that is actually kind of heavy in parts, you know, and things like that. And then you pull from it like, oh, I want to go on a road trip. And I thought that was so cool because it's like one of those things that you don't think about like as of, like you think about big travel, you know, like I'm going to go to another country and see this or that. But road trips, taking a road trip with your friends inspired by a book and going from state to state to state, kind of doing what that, you know, those characters did was actually so cool to me. I thought like, well, that's out of the box. That's really neat.
Yes, that's super unique too. I love that they gave you that idea because that's another very accessible way to travel for those of you who are like, I can't afford to travel. Maybe you're in school or something. There are still plenty of ways to enjoy bookish travel, including a road trip with your girlies.
Yeah. So I really liked that. I thought that was a cool thing, a cool adventure. And it was one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I don't think people think that like a road trip, we could plan a road trip and go and do something like that. But you really can.
That's cool.
Megan and I road tripped in our Ireland trip. We did a road trip. So just driving around and kind of like experiencing someplace new and like trying to figure out like what there is to do. Or, you know, we'll stop at this stop because I heard it's really good. And, you know,
get a little lost and let your maps take you backwards an hour and a half and realize that you're at the castle you just visited 2 hours ago.
Because
that happens. Because I still to this day don't know how my map did that, but it did. And you know what? We saw the back roads.
And it was an adventure, and taking those adventures, and I think that's really cool, and it's out of the box, and it's wonderful. So I was really impressed with that one, actually. And then I discovered a new book. But we have all these ideas of how to travel. And our listeners probably have more ideas than we do, because, we've only kind of like scratched the surface of what there is to do. We've listed tons of different places and things and inspiration, but there's millions of books, there's millions of authors, there's different things you want to do. So obviously this isn't it, but maybe you're overwhelmed with like how to plan bookish travel. Is there somebody that can help, Meg? Who would help?
I just happen to have somebody that does these things for a living. So fun fact for everybody out there, if you haven't figured it out, before we were podcasters talking about books, we are actually travel planners. Yeah. So I have a travel company and for a living plan trips all around the world. And we now have a section of our company devoted to bookish travel. So if you are looking for somebody to help plan, manage, and book these experiences for you, come on our way. So how we work a little bit. So first of all, if you're just like, I need information, I'm interested, but I don't know kind of like what to do from here, all you have to do is reach out to us. You're going to go to our website, which is palmheratravel.com, PALMHERA travel.com. When you go there, there's a contact us page. Fill out the form. Be sure to select on the drop-down that you were referred by either Megan or Whitney, doesn't matter. And in the notes, make sure you put that you found us from the What They Wrote podcast, because we will have a special offer for our listeners. When you submit that form, then we will reach out to you and schedule either a phone call, a video call, and kind of talk about what you are looking for and how we can make that dream come to life. So we always start with a thorough consultation call. We learn about your travel wants, travel needs, kind of any restrictions you have, the dates you want to go, kind of any budget restrictions, how big your group is. Maybe it's just a solo travel trip. And then based on that, we put together a proposal completely custom to you. We do have some pre-built and planned out, but we take those kind of as templates and then customize it based on what you really want out of this experience. And then when we deliver that to you, of course, you can make changes if you need to, if it's not exactly what you were envisioning, or you realize you want to go a little longer or spend a little more, whatever, we completely tailor it to you. After that, we book everything for you. So you don't have to do a thing. We book all the components for you. Sometimes we can book it all in a bundle. Sometimes we kind of have to piecemeal it together if it's something a little more customized. Either way, we do it. We help kind of give you white glove concierge service the entire way. So if there's any changes, cancellations, any kind of thing that you may need assistance with, we help you the whole way through. And we're there to kind of hold your hand, not literally, but figuratively, until you come back home. So that is kind of what we do. We do it for trips all over the world. But since we're talking about bookish travel, this is kind of the part where if you want to go on a bookish adventure, like reach out to us. Of course, if there's any other trips you want to discuss along the way, absolutely. We have members of our team that book and specialize in destinations all over the world. And of course, I'm sure you're wondering like what it costs. Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer off the bat, because our trip planning services completely vary based on how big your party is, how, long or complex the trip is. We do have planning services for any budget. So these are not things that would be completely out of budget for anybody. Like, we work with you. So don't be shy to at least start with that completely complimentary consultation, just to let us know kind of what you're working with. And a little perk for all of our listeners out there, you will all receive 50% off our planning services when you let us know that you found us from the What They Wrote podcast. So again, it's very important to make sure you mention that either in your call or in the notes in our contact form that you found us from this podcast, because you will get 50% off any planning services we may have to incur.
And we love 50% off.
We love 50% off. It's such a good number, like half off. Yes, it's basically like if you're going with two people, like one person free. But anyway, I'm sure the next question you're having is like, how much do these trips cost? That is another even harder question to answer, because as we kind of talked about before, we've talked about everything from road trips within the US to international trips that could be just a little hop across the pond to Colombia, or all the way over to New Zealand and Australia. So it really, really depends on what you want, how long you want to go, what time of year you want to go, because there are high seasons and low seasons that completely change the total cost of the experience. So that's why we have these really like heart-to-heart, one-on-one conversations with you, so we can really discuss about any, concerns or restrictions you have in terms of budget, and we advise you on how to maximize that. So if you come to us and you say you have a number of how much you want to spend, then we will realistically tell you like what you can get for that and what we can make happen. If budget isn't a thing for you, then we will just simply build an itinerary for you based on all the things you really want and need. So it's totally varies, but we work with all budgets of all sizes. So definitely give us a ring so we can set up that consultation with you. And with that, is there anything else we need to discuss?
I don't know. I'm ready for a trip.
I'm ready for a trip too. All of these places, please.
Yeah.
And thank you. Okay.
And just get new inspiration from the books that we're reading, because we continue to read about some great places that, we want to go to.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, since I want to go back to Ireland so badly, I would say like we need to go back to Ireland, maybe do a little bit of Northern Ireland so we can see Belfast and some of the places you talked about. But I also want to dip into Scotland and see a lot of Scottish culture and bookish sites there as well. So my heart needs to get back to Ireland stat. But if it wasn't Ireland, I'd say Croatia is still like top on my list of wanting to go see. And Montenegro we have to go back to because we got screwed out of Montenegro on our cruise. Yeah. We got weathered out. We didn't get to leave the boat, and it looked freaking beautiful from the ship. So that is definitely a place I want to go. A literal fairy tale. So we can make that a bookish experience too.
Yes, absolutely. See, I'm feeling that too. I feel like I need to get back to those places that maybe I've missed before. Maybe I want to, see for the first time. I really delved into German fairy tale travel recently, just kind of exploring what that entailed. It looks so fun. Taking like a trip through kind of like this fairy tale. They have like a fairy tale lane that goes through like Western Germany. And you go to all these different places where like the Grimm brothers wrote their stories and all these little fairy tales come from, Rapunzel and all that stuff. So I thought about that as well. And so that's now on my list of bookish travel that I need to take. But yeah, I'm ready for my next trip.
Let's do it. Let's plan it right after this call.
Yep. See you there.
All right, friends. Well, thanks so much for tuning into today's bonus episode of the What They Wrote podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our sponsor, Palmyra Travel Group and Bookish Travel. If you like this episode, please take a minute to leave us a 5-star rating so others can find us. Our next episode will drop on February 3rd with author Kai Venn, where we will be talking all about the Mossverse as well as writing spicy under a pen name. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.
Bye, guys.
This episode was brought to you by Palmyra Travel Group. Our travel advisors will help you to plan any and all travel from A to Z, including bookish travel. Travel to locations found in or inspired by your favorite books. Whether you like to travel solo or want to bring a group of friends, we help you manage all aspects of your trip. Ready to plan your next bookish adventure? Contact Palmyra Travel today at www.palmyratravel.com. That's www.palmheratravel.com or on Instagram at Palmyra Travel, Palmhera Travel. Palmyra Travel. We plan, you travel.